Hey guys, Sean here, and welcome to the F1 Word. Now, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a team called Red Bull. It burst onto the F1 scene as the cool new kid on the block and wasn't taken all that seriously. After all, what did an energy drinks company know about winning in F1? After employing the likes of Adrian Newey and bringing through the young talent of Sebastian Vettel, Red Bull went on to win 4 back-to-back F1 titles between 2010 and 2013. Seb Vettel left at the end of 2014, and after a season and a bit with Daniel Ricciardo and Daniel Kvyat racing for them, the team swapped Kvyat for an incredible generational talent called Max Verstappen, who would eventually go on to become a 4-time world champion. Daniel Ricciardo did well alongside him in the seasons they were together, but left at the end of 2018, and that put Red Bull in the position of needing a new driver. After all, teams needed to run 2 cars in Formula 1. They tried Pierre Gasly, but that didn't work. Alex Albon was next, and whilst arguably better, that didn't work in the end either. Sergio Perez took over for a while and did the best of anyone since Ricciardo. Eventually, though, the team let him go and replaced him with Liam Lawson for 2 whole races before deciding that didn't work, and so chose to promote Yuki Tsunoda to the main team, and, well, surprise, surprise, that isn't working either. That is all a slightly more light-hearted or tongue-in-cheek way of briefly explaining the last few years at Red Bull and the mess they found themselves in, as well as highlighting the fact that despite all the chopping and changing, they still have a huge decision ahead of them. Do they stick with Tsunoda for 2026 or twist by trying out another driver? Oh yes, it's August 2025 and I'm still here talking again about Red Bull's second driver dilemma, specifically this time what they could and perhaps should do with it for next season. But what are their options? Well, let's run through them and then I'll tell you what I think they will do and what I think they should do after that, essentially what I'd do in their position. Now, firstly, Yuki Tsunoda currently holds onto that seat, and since making the move up from this season's Japanese Grand Prix, he has struggled massively with a car that is once again proving very difficult to drive and is yet to find any real consistent form in general, let alone consistent point-scoring form. What is incredibly frustrating to watch from the outside is that we know Tsunoda is a good, competent driver who is far better than his run of form would suggest, for the most part anyway. He is quick, and we've witnessed him extract the maximum from the sister team's car to grab some very strong results in the past, and he has improved massively since his first season, arguably seeming to take a step forward each season he's been in the sport. It has been argued by many, and yes, that includes me, that he should have been the one to replace Perez immediately and not drafted in just a couple of races into the new season. That is not a case of with the benefit of hindsight, because I and many others were saying that before the Lawson promotion was even confirmed. He'd done what he needed to do and earned his chance in that Red Bull. Of course, yes, he would still be driving the same car and so would be faced with the same problems, but don't forget, had he been the immediate choice to succeed Checo, he would have had a full pre-season of testing and 2 extra races to learn the car and start making some moves in the right direction, but as it was a sudden call, he's been left chasing his tail. The rest of these options will be in no particular order, but next up, what about a return for Liam Lawson? Okay, I'll admit this seems very unlikely. For starters, generally speaking, Red Bull don't tend to go back on decisions when it comes to the main team at least. Okay, they dropped Kvyat from Toro Rosso and brought him back again, but he was never really in the frame for a Red Bull return even when he was performing well. It is also the case since being dropped, Liam hasn't exactly set the world alight, has he? Yeah, it is hard to deal with that kind of demotion, I'm sure, and bouncing back is tough. He too won't have had a pre-season driving the car he's now expected to deliver in, and he's up against one of the more impressive and, as I'll talk about in a video next week, one of the more surprising talents of 2025 in Isack Hadjar, so it's a tough gig for him. Lawson has shown improvement in recent race weekends, as though it's not all doom and gloom, and hopefully he can find the form he needs to get another season with the team. Frankly, it would be quite nice to see him do a full season in one car for a change. The problem is, whilst no 2 drivers or situations are the same, Pierre Gasly was dumped down to Toro Rosso in 2019, yet managed to pump in some excellent results, and even found himself on the podium in Brazil that year, continued his strong form into 2020, and even won a race. In fact, he's been one of the most consistent drivers in that midfield over the last few years. Again, no 2 people are the same, but it shows that drivers can bounce back very strongly from that sort of kick in the gut. And if Lawson is going to do that, he needs to do it soon, because Helmut Marko seems hell-bent on getting Arvid Lindblad in one of those 4 seats as soon as possible, and with it most likely to be at the junior team, Lawson looks a little bit vulnerable. A reprieve may come though if the team drops Tsunoda and promotes Hadjar, which is the next option on this list. As well as being the next option, this seems to be the most likely scenario should Red Bull not stick with Tsunoda. Again, I'll talk more about Isack Hadjar in a video next week, but he has had a very impressive start to his Formula 1 career, and despite his rookie status, already looks like he belongs. He's been quick, shown some good growth, still has potential, and for the most part has delivered some very good results. Things have been a bit more of a struggle on the run-up to the summer break, but there is still plenty of time to turn that around and find the form he needs to bring himself into play for a promotion at some stage soon. At the very least, though, he has definitely earned himself a second season in the sport with Racing Bulls. The problem is, Red Bull, as already covered at the start of this video, do have a bit of a habit of burning through drivers very quickly, and that has left them exposed. He is staying for now, but what if Max Verstappen had left? There is no way a lineup of, for example, Tsunoda and Lawson or Hadjar and Lindblad would have been anywhere near good enough, even if the car was made more drivable for them, so they've got to be careful. There are other options available to them, some realistic and some that are almost plucked from the land of fantasy. As an example of the latter, I've seen some, and it is only a few on social media to be fair, suggesting they should swallow their pride and accept they were wrong and welcome back Sergio Perez. However, for one, those bridges really have been burned. It may have ended amicably in their statements, but things have been said since that put pay to that idea. Also, Red Bull don't like going back on their driver decisions, and quite frankly, whilst we can all sit here and say it was the wrong thing to do with the benefit of 8 months of hindsight, at the time, letting a struggling Checo go to try out someone else and bringing a Red Bull driver into the fold made sense to a lot of people. Long story short, no, Checo won't be back. More realistic, non-Red Bull targets that still seem a bit far-fetched for 2026 alongside Verstappen could be the likes of Pierre, or Alex Albon, but that seems unlikely given that for the third time the team don't like going back on their decisions. Secondly, because it will be costly to get them out of their current contracts, and thirdly, why would they want to join? They've both been in that seemingly impossible position of being Max Verstappen's teammate before, and things definitely appear much worse now for the number 2 at Red Bull than they were a few years back. And both drivers seem very happy and are doing great jobs at the teams they're currently with, so I don't see that happening. One name, though, that I think would probably not mind a go and who has the potential to do a good job alongside Max is Nico Hulkenberg. And no, not just because he picked up a podium a few weeks back. He has consistently demonstrated in F1 that he can get a tune out of a car that lacks pace and or is not the easiest to drive at times. Granted, that doesn't mean he'd be able to replicate that at Red Bull, but he might be a better bet than chasing a youngster thanks to his experience. He also seems to get on well with Max, and so there will likely be a good teammate relationship there too. Hopping back into reality, gosh, boring here, we know it's more than likely going to be one of Tsunoda, Lawson or Hadjar taking that second seat next season, but who will it be and what would I do if I was in the position of Helmut Marko and Lauren McKees? Well, I've just gone through a few unrealistic possibilities, but actually some of you might argue that this is right up there with those. I would stick with Yuki Tsunoda and leave Lawson and Hadjar where they are for 2026. Yes, really, let me explain. Is that second Red Bull a bad car? Yeah, it seems that way, but I don't think it's as bad as the results show, and with the updates to make it easier to drive, there could be a glimmer of hope that Tsunoda can get to grips with it. But forget 2025, Red Bull are done there. In 2026, we have a brand new set of regulations, and so it is unlikely the new car will be as heavily geared towards Max Verstappen as this year's is. So that fresh start might offer Tsunoda the chance to show that he can deliver, still has the speed and can be closer to Verstappen than he is now, a solid number 2 driver. I know the team's Honda ties come to an end at the end of this year, but if Yuki can convince Red Bull he should be given a final chance, why not give him that? Especially when you consider that they know the second car is pretty much dead in the water most weekends at the moment. And don't forget, this hasn't just been a Tsunoda or 2025 problem, this has been going on for a while now. Of course, he may not deliver and could end up in trouble anyway, but my argument is give him the first half of 2026 and then, if he's still not on target, that's when you move Hadjar up. That way, he gets at least another half a season to hone his skills and Lindblad gets more time in F2, which I still think he needs to grow and develop as a young driver before putting him alongside Lawson for the rest of next season. That's what I would do, but what do I think will happen? I actually think Tsunoda staying is more of a possibility now McKees is the team principal. Had Horner still been there, I'd be saying Hadjar will be thrown into that second seat. But McKee's like Tsunoda and has worked with him before, and it already seems as though he is starting to lean more towards the two-car approach when you look at the updates he pushed through for Yuki's car in, for example, Spa. However, Helmut Marko exists, and the real question is he patient enough to wait and give Tsunoda another chance? When you consider that Yuki was overlooked for Lawson initially this season, I'd argue, no, he doesn't have the patience. So I suspect if he has his way, barring some kind of miraculous turnaround for Tsunoda, it'll be Verstappen and Hadjar at Red Bull with Lawson and Lindblad at Racing Bulls. Not that I'd be mad at that, by the way. A new car and a fresh start is potentially just as much of a benefit to Hadjar as it would be to Tsunoda, and he may absolutely nail it and thrive. My concern is that they'll just burn through another young talent and we'll be having the same conversation 12 months from now. I hope not, though, but, we've been here before. That is it for this one then, but let me know down in the comments what you think will happen on the Red Bull driver front for 2026. And do you have any semi-realistic options on your list to partner Max Verstappen next year? Now, I will be back soon with another video, but in the meantime, if you did enjoy this one, then please do leave a like, because it really does help the channel in its fight with that algorithm, and consider subscribing too so you don't miss any future videos or streams. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.